Good afternoon. You're listening to Ken Hudnall. This is the Ken Hudnall Show. Coming to you from our studios right here in exciting El Paso, Texas. Gateway to the Old West and the most haunted city in the country. Well, yesterday we had quite a storm. Knocked out the power for almost 2 hours. So if there's a glitch or two in the show, my system is still having issues with the power failure. Okay, today is July the 3rd, 184th day of the year. 181 days remain of the year is over with. Holidays and observances. It's National Chocolate Wafer Day. That's one I can get behind. And a National Plastic Bag Free Day. National Stay Out of the Sun Day. VI Emancipation Day. That's the Virgin Islands. National Independent Beer Run Day. Thirsty Thursday. American Redneck Day. Hey, if your mother has a spit cup on the end of the ironing board, you might be a redneck. Air Conditioning Appreciation Day. National Fried Clam Day. St. Thomas Day. Start the Conversation Day. National Eat Your Beans Day. National Compliment Your Mirror Day. And the National Drop a Rock Day. Crafting silence milestones adorned with kindness and pictures and what have you. These tapestry of unexpected joy. Disobedience Day. Wimbledon, which goes on to the 13th. Oh my God. Well, my system just hiccuped. The Omegang pageant is a colorful celebration. Fills the streets with energy and excitement. It's let's see. It is a pageant that's been going on since 1549 in Brussels. It honors the visit of Emperor Charles V, who, if I'm not mistaken, was Holy Roman Emperor. Rabbit Week, Sweetness Week, famous people born on this date. Tom, Mission Impossible Cruise, Patrick Olson, Olivia Munn. It's interesting. Some of these famous people think they're God's gift to the world. Others are down to earth. If I'm not mistaken, from everything I've been told, Tom Cruise fits both categories. He has his days. Well, Trump's $3.3 trillion bill overcame Republican rebellion in a key House vote. O.J. Simpson's attorney slams the court's decision after the Diddy verdict stuns the courtroom. That was one of the most mishandled cases I've had the misfortune to watch. And I've dealt with everything from crooked judges to stupid prosecutors. I'm not talking about ignorant, I'm talking about just flat out stupid. Well, several people are missing. 7 people, actually, after an explosion at a California firework factory. Search and rescue teams resorted to using drones as dangers prevent direct entry into the Yolo County explosion site. Hundreds of people were left without power. 7 people missing. At least 2 people are injured in the explosion that happened just before 6 p.m. local time at a facility housing commercial fireworks in Esparto. I've been present at more than one fireworks explosion. I don't recommend it. Well, Representative Jayapal defends her comments calling ICE a terrorist force. She says the White House owes an apology to Americans. Well, White House spokeswoman claims there's a 500% increase in assaults against ICE agents due to this type of rhetoric from the left. If she loves the undocumented so much, why hasn't she taken them into her home? No, she's one of the elite. Like here, our congresswoman, who had been a friend, who I helped get elected. I went to her about an issue with the VA, and she said, I don't have time for the little problems of veterans. I've got undocumented immigrants to take care of. No, she was not elected to represent the undocumented immigrants. She was elected to represent American citizens, to include disabled veterans, which is something I don't think she's ever understood. Well, Key West is in hot water. They voted to end an agreement that removed criminals. They voted to end the police agreement with ICE. Parent discovered a major museum pushing climate change instead of celebrating the spirit of America. Smithsonian, of all places. Undergoing review after Trump's executive order that removed divisive or anti-American ideology. CBS staffers are in a revolt over Paramount's agreement to settle with Trump. They call it shameful, a betrayal to the network's journalist. Well, if they don't want to work there, there's the door. They said this settlement was a cowardly capitulation by the corporate leaders of Paramount and a fundamental betrayal of 60 Minutes of CBS News. That comment came from Rome Hartman, a veteran 60 Minutes producer. The suit revolved around the editing of a Harris interview to make her sound intelligent. Which, quite frankly, was a real stretch. GOP Congressman's intern was caught in an ambush. Police are hunting for the suspects. He was killed in Washington, D.C. 21-year-old Eric Tarpinian Jacom. He wasn't believed to be the real target of the shooting. He was shot about 10:28 in the evening in the 1200 block of 7th Street Northwest in Washington, D.C. An adult female and a 16-year-old male were also shot and taken to local hospitals. According to police, multiple individuals jumped out of a car and began shooting at a group of people. They're not really sure who the actual target was. He was an intern for Representative Ron Estes, Republican of Kansas, rising senior majoring in finance with a minor in political science at the University of Massachusetts in Amherst. Another Washington staffer was the victim of an armed carjacking. Looks to me like inmates are taking over the asylum in Washington, D.C. Well, Brian Kohlberger pled guilty in the fatal stabbing of University of Idaho students. He made that plea in return for the death penalty to be taken off the table. He accepted 4 consecutive life sentences without parole for the 2022 University of Idaho killings. The Judge Stephen Hippler approved a plea agreement that spared Kohlberger, 30 years old, from the death penalty. He'll serve 4 consecutive life sentences. As part of the agreement, he pleaded guilty to 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of felony burglary. He did so with both his parents in the gallery. His father was very visibly unhappy when the judge accepted the agreement. Sentencing has been set for July 23rd. The 4 students, Ethan Chapin, Madison Mogan, Zena Kernodle, and Kaylee Goncalves, Found stabbed to death at an off-campus rental house in Moscow, Idaho. Kohlberger was a former PhD criminology student at Washington State University. He was arrested December 2022 after a cross-country investigation. President Trump's called for federal chair Jerome Powell to resign. Job growth picked up in June as the labor market weathered economic uncertainty. And of course, keep in mind, tomorrow is July the 4th. GOP holdouts are claiming the big beautiful bill is going to be a disaster for the party and the country. Well, the Diddy fiasco is still being discussed. He was acquitted on the most serious charges, and he might have faced arsenal penalties if prosecution hadn't tried to get a RICO conviction. That's a rare Christian cross among a 1,000-year-old Viking treasures found by metal detectors. An unusual cross pendant offered a glimpse into early Christianization of the region. I used to every weekend be out on the beach with a metal detector when I lived in California. This particular discovery was in northern Germany. It was a hoard of early medieval treasures, dated back 1,000 years, found on the shores of the Schlei, inlet of the Baltic Sea. Officials said the area is near a once significant Viking-era trading post. A systematic excavation of the site using volunteer helpers recovered the objects. The hoard included nearly 200 objects, most of them made of silver and hacked silver and fragments of Arabic coins, bar pieces, and jewelry. And of course, particularly noteworthy, as I said, was the Delta Cross pendant, which was a testament to the beginning of Christianization in that particular region. Okay. Millions of Americans have been warned about the possibility of lone wolf terrorist attacks over the 4th. I suspect if they happen, they'll happen in the Northeast. In Texas. I remember when I was doing my radio show, I was asked by one of the cartel leaders if I'd come make a public appearance at some event he was having. And I said, thank you kindly. But I've only been south of the border into Mexico half a dozen times for various events. And he said, I said, why don't you come up here? And they said, well, no, we can't do that. Because down here, we control the guns. Up there, everybody and their dog has a gun. So, yeah, that's quite true. Drive-by shooting outside of Chicago Lounge left 4 people dead and 14 hospitalized after a party. CNN commentator wanted to know if the Trump family citizenship had been investigated. We got some, and this came from CNN, which has been known for a long time as the Commie News Network. Clint Eastwood's complicated love life is being investigated in a new biography. Trump's move on Syria is seen as a bid to revive peace and squeeze Iran and fight terrorism. The retired British colonel said Israel is minimizing civilian harm in the ongoing Gaza conflict. They do tell the folks in Gaza, if they're going to attack an area, they say, get out. Hamas, of course, stays and they pay the penalty. You know, for most Americans, the 4th of July is marked by patriotic celebrations. Though right now we have a move afoot to boycott the 4th by the left. And if they want to stay home, by all means. Every 4th and 5th of July, over 45,000 people visit the ER. That's according to the Pew Research Center. That means the Independence Day's got the year's highest number of medical emergencies. Fireworks accidents and injuries get most of the attention, but there are more falls and broken bones and head injuries and car accidents, in addition to fireworks injuries. Dr. Robert Birnbaum, an emergency medicine physician in Fairport, New York, also the chief medical officer at Well Now Urgent Care, said the 4th is one of the busiest days for ERs across the country. The most common injuries, of course, are firework injuries, which causes a lot of eye injuries in particular. Corneal burns, scratches, even permanent vision loss due to flying debris or sudden explosions. Loud blasts can also harm hearing, especially in young children, sometimes resulting in tinnitus or even long-term hearing damage. And of course, there have been lacerations, lost fingers, facial injuries when fireworks explode too close or malfunctioned. I had one go off in my hand once. Got smarted, let me tell you. With more people indulging in alcoholic beverages on the 4th, Dr. Elena Stenson said she's seen everything from falls to cuts to vehicle accidents and alcohol poisoning. In fact, impaired judgment's the leading cause behind many ER visits. Then you've got grill burns and cooking accidents, mishandling propane tanks or grills, which cause flash burns and cuts, particularly on the hands and the arms. And then, of course, you got heat exhaustion and dehydration, car and boat accidents, drownings and near drownings. So it's the 4th is quite a dangerous day. Well, His Lordship Obama and George H.W. Bush have both come out criticizing President Trump. A lot of the issues he's dealing with were caused by those two presidents, especially His Lordship Obama, who unfortunately believed the media when they said he was the greatest thing that ever walked the face of the planet. Well, there's a beach accident near Hilton Head, killed 2. Number of others were injured. There's an investigation going on about the boating accident. Claimed the lives of 2 people, left 2 others injured. It was a boating crash in the Skull Creek area. When authorities arrived, the vessel was located with 4 individuals on board. 2 occupants sustained injuries and were transported to the local hospital. 2 others were dead. Multiple response teams were involved in the rescue operations. Divers were deployed and went into the waters promptly upon arrival. There was one boat overturned. A young mother was thrown from a boat, leaving behind a husband and 4 children after an Alabama water tragedy. A sport fishing boat violently crashed into Muscat Beach jetty. 4 people were injured. 3 are dead, 9 are missing near San Diego after a boat washed ashore. Okay, what else have we got? Federal lawsuit claimed a snow park warned an employee not to post Bible verses on their social media before they were fired. UN expert repeated the Israel genocide claims after the U.S. called for her removal. Palestinian envoy defended controversial report while calling a Trump-backed humanitarian group a trap. And I would say consider the source. Clinton advisors warned the Democrats they better straighten up after Mamdani's upset win over Cuomo in the New York City primary. He wants to turn New York City into a socialist enclave. A court approved a settlement after a North Carolina student was suspended for making an illegal alien comment. Got a 3-day suspension. Sparked a free speech lawsuit. It was a high school student. Had a free speech battle against North Carolina School Board. Christian McGee, 17, was suspended last year after school officials deemed he made a racially insensitive comment about illegal aliens in class. And that suspension led to a year-long legal battle with the Davidson County Board of Education. Last month, a proposed settlement was reached between his parents and school board. Judge Thomas David Schroeder, one of God's anointed, U.S. District Court for the Middle District of North Carolina, ruled the proposed settlement was fair, reasonable, in the best interest of the student. Schools agreed to remove the racial bias incident from his record, issue a public apology, and acknowledge that a former board member responded inappropriately to the incident. The Supreme Court declined to review a free speech case involving a student that wore a T-shirt that said only 2 genders. Oh, you want to get the powers that be up in arms. Take the position there are only 2 genders. Well, apparently Elizabeth Hurley and Billy Ray Cyrus have hooked up. She is a beautiful woman, and he's a hairy individual. Well, UK Jews are upset about the rise in anti-Semitism, even before the Glastonbury Festival hate chants. We're seeing a repeat of the 1930s. Well, America's elite many are heading for New Zealand, which is considered an oasis at the bottom of the world. Well, some deputies showed up at a Texas home, Harris County. Saw a massive alligator enjoying the sun in his front yard, which the homeowner did not appreciate, of course. All right. Let's see what else we got. Uber Eats is expanding the use of delivery robots in more U.S. cities, replacing some drivers. Fireworks sales are booming right now. Riley Gaines is calling the NCAA spineless regarding the University of Pennsylvania deal about Leah Thomas, who's a transgender. Well, I think that's got that. Let's go to our topic. We've been talking about UFOs. And there are a number of books by whistleblowers. I'm reading one right now. It's called Imminent. When I finish it, we'll be discussing it. You know, basically, even though publicly the Air Force downplays the very idea of UFOs, there are a lot of stories about encounters. We're going to talk about some more of those encounters today. We're going to start out with the incident of Northumberland Island. It's in Nova Scotia in Canada. Took place October 11th, 1967. It's or commonly known as the Shag Harbor incident, one of the most documented and discussed cases in the history of UFO sightings. Before this event, Shag Harbor was a quiet little fishing community, not very well known outside the province of Nova Scotia. But the night of October 11th, 1967, everything changed. A number of witnesses reported seeing an unidentified flying object crash into the harbor waters. Now, what sets this incident apart from other UFO sightings is the amount of reliable witnesses. There were fishermen, police officers, and a number of respected citizens, as well as a quick response from Canadian authorities and armed forces. Immediate searches were launched to recover the object or even debris, but despite intensive efforts, no material remains were found, which of course left the incident shrouded in mystery. Official reports and declassified documents have since fueled interest and speculation, making Shag Harbor incident an important case study. Now, it all began on the evening of October 11th, 1967, about 10:15 in the evening. Several witnesses reported seeing an unidentified flying object in the night sky. Now, the weather was mild for an autumn night, few clouds, perfect visibility, which allowed for detailed observation of the event. Now, the object was triangular in shape, dimensions estimated to be about 30 meters in length on each side. Emitted a soft, constant light, bluish color, seemed to envelop the entire structure. What particularly intrigued the witnesses was the way the object moved in the sky. It glided without any perceptible noise at a relatively slow speed, contrasted with the typical movements of conventional aircraft. Now, the UFO was observed for about 20 minutes, first moving south before abruptly changing course to head east. And during its movement, the object performed several maneuvers that seemed to defy the laws of physics as we understand them, including making right-angle direction changes without any apparent slowing down. In addition to its triangular shape and lights, the object had a remarkable feature. It seemed to have a kind of halo or aura around it, which fluctuated slightly, giving the impression of a distortion of the air around the object. This phenomenon was described by some witnesses as resembling a ripple or a blur, which made it difficult to accurately estimate the size and distance of the UFO. Now, the weather conditions during the observation are ideal for such observation. The sky was clear, a few thin veils of cirrus clouds that only added to the visibility of the stars. The moon was in a waxing phase, which provided additional light, but not enough to interfere with the visibility of the object. Temperature was cool, typical of an October night in that region. No wind or precipitation, which eliminated the possibility the observed object was a light effect caused by unusual atmospheric conditions. Now, one of the main witnesses was a local fisherman named John Mackenzie. He described seeing a triangular-shaped object with flashing lights of different colors. According to his testimony, the object remained stationary in the sky for several minutes before it moved at an incredible speed toward the east. Now, he was out at sea at the time, mentioned that the object made no sound and seemed to defy the laws of physics with its abrupt movements and ability to remain stationary. Another observer, Sarah Jennings, who was at home with her family, reported seeing a similar object. She said the object had a series of blue and red lights that seemed to rotate around its perimeter. And she said the object suddenly accelerated and disappeared from sight in just an instant, leaving behind a luminous trail that persisted for a few seconds before it faded away. Third witness, a teenager named Liam Roberts, captured a video of the object with his mobile phone. Now, of course, the quality of the video was poor, but it clearly shows a bright object moving erratically in the sky. And he described the object as being oval-shaped and enveloped in what he called a halo of white light, which fluctuated as if it was made of pure energy. Finally, a vacationing couple, the Turners, testified having seen the object while they were walking on the beach. And Mr. Turner was an astronomy enthusiast, specified the object did not correspond to any conventional aircraft or any known material unnatural phenomena. He described the object as being extremely bright, much more so than the surrounding stars, and noted it intermittently changed color, shifting from blue to red and then to white. Now, following the receipt of several reports of unidentified flying objects in the sky, an official investigation was launched by the government. Initial reaction to the authorities was skepticism, of course, but public pressure and clarity to testimonies led to a more thorough investigation being conducted. Initial stages of the investigation involved collecting testimonies from local residents and tourists present on the island at the time of the incident. Investigators gathered detailed descriptions of the observed objects, which varied in shape, size, and behavior. Some witnesses described a triangular object with a bright light in each corner. Others reported seeing a series of lights moving at high speed before suddenly disappearing. Now, concurrently with the collection of testimonies, military authorities were asked to verify any unusual aerial activity in the region on the date of the incident. Initial reports from local air bases indicated no activity that could match the reported observations. Further investigations revealed that unannounced military exercises had taken place, although officials quickly dismissed the idea these activities were related to the UFO sightings. Investigations also included an analysis of weather and astronomical conditions to rule out natural phenomena as a possible cause. Meteorology and astronomy experts consulted confirmed the conditions were clear and no known astronomical or meteorological phenomena could explain the observations made by the witnesses. In the face of the absence of clear conclusions, and the persistence of testimonies, the government decided to form a special committee to examine the collected data and explore other leads. The committee was composed of scientists and aeronautics specialists and experts in paranormal phenomena. After several months of analysis and coffee breaks and numerous meetings, the committee published a report that concluded the absence of tangible evidence of extraterrestrial presence, but acknowledged the inadequacy of conventional explanations for certain aspects of the incident. Now, despite the official conclusions, the Northumberland Island incident continues to spark interest and speculation. The documents related to the investigation have been partially declassified, allowing researchers and the public to revisit the details of the case. Discussions and analysis continue in UFO and scientific circles, with some advocating for the reopening of the investigation in light of new technologies and analysis methodologies. Now, the very first theory often put forth by UFO enthusiasts is that of extraterrestrial visitation. And according to this hypothesis, the observed objects could be spacecraft of non-earthly origins. Supporters of this theory rely on the apparently advanced technology of UFOs, such as their ability to perform high-speed aerial maneuvers without notable noise, as well as testimonies of close encounters with entities that don't seem to be human. This theory is often reinforced by reports of electronic blackouts and magnetic interferences, phenomena that some interpret as evidence of advanced technologies. Now, another popular theory, of course, is that of secret military experimentation. This hypothesis suggests UFOs could be prototypes of aircrafts or drones secretly being developed by the government or private companies. Supporters of this theory argue the Northumberland Island incident would be a test of experimental technologies, including devices using advanced propulsion forms or stealth materials. And this hypothesis is often supported by the fact that many UFO incidents occur in their military bases or in areas of strategic interest. Now, a third perspective, of course, is that of misinterpreted natural phenomena. Some skeptics suggest that what witnesses saw could be attributed to rare but natural atmospheric phenomena, such as ball lightning type of lights or atmospheric mirages. Proponents of this theory emphasize that under particular atmospheric conditions, lights and objects can appear to behave abnormally, and unfamiliarity with these phenomena can lead to misinterpretations. And finally, of course, there's the ever-ready possibility it was a hoax, a collective hallucination. Everybody's crazy except the investigators. This explanation suggests the incident could have been orchestrated to attract attention by individuals wishing to propagate a sensational story. Alternatively, it could be a form of collective psychosis where several people share an illusion or hallucination due to social or environmental influences. In other words, everybody who sees it's crazy. Now, from Nova Scotia, let's go to England. The Aldershot incident took place in 1967 in England. Well, the Aldershot incident is a little known but fascinating event in the history of UFO sightings. Located in the south of England, Aldershot is primarily known for being a garrison of the British Army, which adds an intriguing dimension to this incident. 1967 was a time when the Cold War was at its peak and public interest in unidentified phenomena was growing rapidly. And the residents of Aldershot witnessed unusual events that sparked discussion and speculation for decades. According to reports, several witnesses, including military personnel, observed unidentified flying objects exhibiting flight characteristics and technological capabilities far ahead of the known aerial technologies at the time. These observations took place in a context of international tension and increased military surveillance, which, of course, contributed to the complexity of interpreting these events. Testimonies collected during this incident include descriptions of objects moving at extraordinary speeds with aerial maneuvers that defy conventional explanations, sometimes accompanied by strange lights and unexplained sounds. The Aldershot incident remains an intriguing and unresolved case in the annals of encounters with UFOs, offering a fascinating insight into the challenges associated with demystifying such phenomena. On that particular evening, the sky was exceptionally clear, almost perfect visibility, which is quite rare for an autumn evening in that region. Temperature was cool, typical of the season, with a slight northeast wind, adding a chill to the ambient air. The observed objects described as being triangular in shape with approximate dimensions of 30 meters per side. Its surface appeared metallic, reflecting the lights of the stars and the moon, which was then in its first quarter. What particularly distinguished this UFO was its ability to move in complete silence, characteristic often reported in other UFO sightings, but which never ceases to amaze witnesses. Witnesses reported the object emitted a soft, non-blinding light which seemed to envelop its structure. Light wasn't constant, but pulsated slightly at a regular rhythm, giving the object an almost living appearance. The UFO was first observed to the east of the city of Aldershot, slowly moving northwest. Speed was moderate, but it seemed to be conducting some sort of surveillance or scanning the area. The movements of the object were fluid and controlled, with changes in direction to defy the capabilities of conventional aircraft. On several occasions, the object abruptly accelerated and slowed down as if it was performing exploration maneuvers. Witnesses to this incident were mainly local residents who initially thought they were observing an airplane or a helicopter, given the proximity of military bases. However, the silent nature of the object, its unusual maneuvering capabilities, quickly led to the conclusion it was not a conventional aircraft. Moreover, no engine noise or the typical aircraft sounds were reported, which added to the strangeness of this observation. Total duration of the observation was about a half an hour. During this time, the object crossed a large part of the sky visible from Aldershot before suddenly disappearing on the northwest horizon. Disappearance of this UFO was as mysterious as its appearance, with a final flash of light before it melted into the darkness of the night. Now, among the main witnesses were members of the British Army as well as local residents, each providing details that, when put together, make up a complex and fascinating enigma. One of the first testimonies came from Captain John Kilburn, who was on duty at the Fox Lines barracks on the evening of the incident. According to his report, he observed an unidentified flying object about 8 p.m. This object, described as being oval-shaped, emitting intense light, seemed to be flying over the area at a relatively low altitude. He noted the object is moving at a constant speed without emitting any audible sound, which is particularly puzzling given its proximity. Another significant testimony came from Sergeant Alice Stafford, also stationed at Aldershot that night. She reported seeing a similar object, but added it was projecting beams of light toward the ground, as if it was performing some sort of scanning. Sergeant Stafford described the lights as being blue-green in color, which differed from the usual descriptions of white or yellow lights reported in other UFO sightings. Among the civilian witnesses, Mrs. Helen Archer, a resident of Aldershot, provided an account that corroborates the military observations. She described seeing a large bright object crossing the sky at an impressive speed. Ms. Archer mentioned the object abruptly stopped above the town before it changed directions and disappeared on the horizon. She insisted on the fact the object made no noise, which was disconcerting given its high speed and size. Another resident of Aldershot, Mr. Thomas Gregg, observed the object from his window. He described it as having an underlying metallic structure with several lights arranged around its perimeter. According to Mr. Gregg, the object emitted a brief flash of light before it rose into the sky and vanished. These testimonies, although varied in specific details, paint a constant picture of an unidentified flying object exhibiting seemingly advanced technological characteristics. The absence of noise, the ability for abrupt movements in different directions, and targeted light emissions are aspects that frequently reoccur in the witnesses' descriptions. These observations have fueled speculation about the nature and origin of the object observed that night, leaving experts and curious individuals in search of answers ever since it was first seen. The investigation into the Aldershot incident began immediately after the first reports of the UFO. Several witnesses reported having seen it in the Aldershot region. Local military authorities, in collaboration with government agencies, launched a series of investigations to clarify the nature and origin of these reported sightings. The initial reaction of the authorities was to treat these reports with some caution while recognizing the need for a thorough investigation due to the proximity to the Aldershot military base, an important strategic site for British defense. The initial testimonies mainly came from military personnel on duty as well as a few local residents. These testimonies described unusual lights and movements of objects in the night sky, some mentioning trajectories and speeds that didn't correspond with conventional aircraft. Investigators first examined the radar data for that period, looking for evidence of unidentified aerial objects. Now, the results of this radar analysis were ambiguous, at times showing unexpected echoes that were not consistent with the movements of known commercial or military aircraft. But these data didn't provide conclusive evidence, leaving room for various interpretations. In parallel, in-depth interviews were conducted with the witnesses. Investigators sought to correlate the accounts to identify patterns or common details that could help understand the incident. These interviews revealed a certain consistency in the description of the phenomena, particularly in terms of the shape of the object and their exceptional behavior in the sky. Several witnesses also reported an absence of noise, which was atypical for traditional aircraft. In the face of the absence of definitive conclusions from later analysis and testimonies, the military authorities have extended the investigation to other agencies, including aerospace experts and scientists specializing in the study of atmospheric phenomena. This phase of the investigation included more technical analysis, such as verifying the weather conditions at the time of the observation, examining alternative hypotheses such as optical illusions or rare natural phenomena. Despite these efforts, the investigators failed to provide a definitive explanation. Final reports highlighted the insufficiency of evidence to draw a firm conclusion, which acknowledged the authenticity of the observers' testimonies. The authorities therefore classified the incident as unresolved while remaining open to receiving new information that might emerge in the future. Now, this incident also sparked considerable public media interest, which put some pressure on the authorities to be transparent in their handling of the investigation. In response, the authorities released several statements to inform the public about the progress of the investigation and the difficulties encountered in reaching a clear explanation. In conclusion, although the Aldershot incident remains unresolved, the investigation highlighted the challenges associated with identifying and interpreting UFO observations, as well as the importance of collaboration between different disciplines and agencies to address the phenomena. One of the first theories put forth, of course, was extraterrestrial intervention. This hypothesis suggests the observed object was a spacecraft from an advanced civilization from elsewhere in the universe. Now, proponents of this theory often rely on the description of the object, its exceptional maneuverability, and the absence of noise, which seem to surpass the capabilities of human technologies known at the time. They argue these characteristics can only be attributed to a non-earthly technology. Other explanations commonly discussed is that of secret military projects. According to this theory, the observed object could be a prototype of an airplane or a drone secretly developed by the government or private companies. Advocates of this hypothesis emphasize that many tests of advanced technologies are often conducted in isolated areas and could easily be mistaken for unexplained phenomena by unsuspecting witnesses. Some researchers propose the psychosocial explanation, of course. They suggest the incident could be the result of mass panic or a shared hallucination influenced by the popular culture of the time, which was saturated with science fiction narratives and films about alien invasion. This theory is often reinforced by the fact that similar incidents tend to occur in waves, coinciding with periods of intense media attention on the subject of UFOs. In other words, everybody's crazy except the investigators. Another interesting perspective is that of misunderstanding what a natural phenomena. Supporters of this idea suggest the object could be a rare atmospheric phenomenon such as ball lightning or another type of unusual weather. This phenomena can sometimes display visual and movement characteristics that could be interpreted as an unidentified flying object by untrained observers. And finally, of course, there are those who believe the incident could be a hoax or a setup. This theory is often supported by the lack of concrete physical evidence and difficulty in independently verifying the testimonies of the people involved. Skeptics of this theory argue the incident could have been orchestrated to attract attention for other personal or commercial motives. Of course, nobody's ever been able to specify what these other motives might be. Well, from Aldershot, let's go to the state of Kansas, the city of Delphos. Observation of the UFO, November 2nd, 1971. Now, on that particular date, in the small town of Delphos, which is located in the state of Kansas, an unusual event captured the attention of not only the community and the aerospace phenomena researchers worldwide. On that particular evening, a young boy named Ronald Johnson, 16 years old, was feeding the sheep on a family farm when his attention was diverted by a dazzling light in the sky. He said he saw a mushroom-shaped object about 9 feet tall and 9 feet wide, emitting a bright multicolored light. The object seemed to float a few feet off the ground in a field near the farm. He was intrigued, but he was also scared, so he ran and got his parents. When his mother, Irma Johnson, arrived, she also saw the object before it sounded like it rose into the sky and disappeared at an incredible speed. After the departure of that object, the Johnson family discovered a circular area of shiny and flattened grass where the UFO had been seen. This area remained luminous for several days and resisted all efforts to alter its appearance, including water and fire. Several samples from this area were sent for analysis to show high levels of phosphorus, as well as chemical changes could not be explained in any conventional way. The Delphos incident was widely covered by local and international media, attracted the attention of a lot of ufologists and scientific researchers. Despite various theories and speculations, the origin and nature of the observed object remained unexplained. This event remains an emblematic case in the study of UFO phenomena, often cited for its detailed documentation and physical evidence left behind. Now, on this particular evening, at about 7 in the evening, Ronald Johnson was sent out to feed the sheep on the family farm when he saw this strange and unforgettable phenomenon. The sky was clear, only a few scattered clouds, temperature was cool, typical of an autumn evening in the American Midwest. Well, when he saw this bright object in the sky, he said it was slowly descending toward the ground. He described it as being metallic and circular, measuring about 9 feet in diameter. The surface appeared to be made of shiny metal, emitting a bright light that illuminated the surrounding area. It emitted a whistle or a buzzing noise, perceptible even at a distance. The UFO came to a halt about a meter above the ground in a field near the barn. Now, he observed the object for several minutes, fascinated by its appearance and movements. He said the object had a kind of luminous halo about it, which fluctuated in intensity as if the object was surrounded by some kind of luminous mist. After about 5 minutes, the object began to rise slowly. As it went up, the intensity of the light increased and the whistling noise became sharper. The object rose at increasing speed before it quickly vanished into the night sky, leaving behind a bright trail that faded after a few seconds. Now, As I said earlier, the place where the UFO had been spotted on the ground was marked by a strange circle in the grass about 8 feet in diameter. The circle seemed burnt or dried out, contrasting with the surrounding green grass. The earth inside the circle was hard and resistant, as if it had been exposed to intense heat. Now, the weather conditions that night were clear, with a light wind coming from the north. Visibility was excellent, which allowed for a detailed observation of the object and its characteristics. The moon was almost full, providing additional light, which helped to accentuate the visual details of the incident. This event marked Johnson and the other witnesses who heard about the observation. The accuracy of the details reported by Ronald was supported by the physical marks left on the ground, which were examined by several people in the hours and days after the observation. Now, Ronald Johnson was the first to see the UFO. As I said, he was feeding the sheep on the family property when his attention was drawn to a noise resembling a high-frequency engine. When he looked up, he saw this metallic mushroom-shaped object about 9 feet in diameter. Evelyn Johnson, his mother, confirmed her son's observation. When she came out of the house, she also saw the bright object, was struck by the intensity of the light, seemed to illuminate the entire yard as if it was broad daylight. She described the UFO as having a smooth surface, a kind of luminous halo around it. Now, Lloyd Johnson, the father, also saw the object, but he only saw it for a brief moment before it began to rise into the air. He said the UFO made no perceptible noise as it went up and left behind a kind of shiny residue on the ground where it had been parked. The Johnsons weren't the only witnesses, of course. The neighbors, attracted by the unusual glow, also saw the UFO moving away. Among them, Darrell Johnson, no relation to Ronald's family, reported seeing a round object with flashing lights of different colors. He also mentioned a high-pitched whistling similar to that described by Ronald, which persisted even after the object disappeared. After the departure of the UFO, the Johnsons and several neighbors examined the place where the object had been seen. They saw a circular area of grass seemed to be unaffected, taking on a strange silvery color that shone under the beams of their flashlights. The ground mark became a key element of this incident. It seemed to indicate a direct physical effect of the UFO on its environment. Testimonies of this Delphos incident are particularly interesting due to the consistency of the description of the object and the physical effects observed on the ground. Now, of course, the investigation that followed this event involved several levels of analysis from local authorities to UFO investigators and scientists. Shortly after the observation, the Johnson family contacted the local sheriff's office as well as the press. First arrived on the scene with the sheriff and a newspaper photographer. They found a circular area of burnt grass where Ronald indicated the UFO had landed. And of course, at that time, soil and vegetation samples were taken for analysis. In the following days, the incident attracted the attention of several UFO investigative agencies, including Mutual UFO Network, or MUFON, Center for UFO Studies, or CUFOS, led by Dr. J. Allen Hynek. Investigators from these organizations visited the site, interviewed witnesses, and collected additional data. Hynek himself examined soil samples and found abnormal chemical properties, in his opinion, can be attributed to high heat exposure. And one of the most intriguing pieces of the investigation was the discovery of a luminous ring on the ground, which, according to witnesses, continued to glow several weeks after the incident. Subsequent tests showed the soil in that area was extremely hydrophobic, characteristics scientists say couldn't be explained in the conventional way. Military authorities, including the Air Force, are also informed about the incident, but their level of involvement was, shall we say, less documented. Public reports from the time indicate the Air Force had officially stopped investigating UFOs under Blue Book a few years before, in 1969. But there were persistent rumors suggesting discreet investigations did continue. Investigation into the Delphos incident was complicated by several factors, including the variability of testimonies and lack of irrefutable physical evidence other than soil anomalies. Conclusion of various investigators vary. Some supported the UFO theory, others proposed a more down-to-earth explanation, such as the possibility of a rare meteorological phenomenon or even an elaborate prank. In the end, the Delphos incident was never fully resolved. Soil samples and testimonies remain subjects of study and debate among researchers and unidentified aerial phenomena. Impact of this incident on the Delphos community and on popular culture in general testifies to the enduring and universal appeal of unresolved mysteries and our fascination with the unknown. Now, of course, there are a number of theories and a lot of speculation. First theory, of course, was the extraterrestrial visitation. This hypothesis suggests the object observed by Johnston was a spacecraft from extraterrestrial civilization. And supporters of this theory cite the seemingly advanced technology of the object, capable of flying and leaving behind a luminous residue as evidence of a non-earthly origin. And of course, analysis of the soil where the object supposedly landed revealed chemical anomalies, which strengthens the idea of an extraterrestrial intervention. And of course, another theory was that of a rare natural phenomenon. Some researchers suggested the event can be a result of an uncommon form of ball lightning, or the electrical weather phenomenon that could explain both the luminous appearance and traces left on the ground. This hypothesis seeks to rationalize the observation by linking it to known aerial phenomena, although it's poorly understood. There are those who consider the incident a hoax. According to this perspective, the Delphos incident could have been orchestrated to attract attention or simply put out a desire for mystification. Skeptics point to the absence of witnesses other than the Johnson family and lack of concrete evidence other than testimony of the family members and traces on the ground, which they say could have been fabricated in some yet unknown way. And the fourth theory, of course, suggests the involvement of a secret military project. This hypothesis suggests the observed object could be an experimental craft of the U.S. government tested in secret. Unusual characteristics of the object, such as its ability to emit intense light and leave chemical traces, could be the result of advanced technologies not disclosed to the public. When in doubt, explain it away. At least they didn't say it was a weather balloon. Now, there's been a number of whistleblowers who, in one shape, form, or fashion or another, are involved with the DOD, who've come forward and talk about the fact that the UFO investigation continued even though Blue Book was disbanded. Now, Blue Book, to be perfectly frank, in my humble opinion, was a farce. It was there to give the military a platform in which to deny the existence of UFO encounters. Now, it came out that millions of dollars were spent to continue investigations. And hopefully there'll be a more definitive explanation at some point in time. But until that point in time, we've come to the end of today's show. This is Ken Hudnall for the Ken Hudnall Show, saying have a truly great evening.